Welcome to Season 5 of the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Larksong Enterprises. This podcast is for teachers who are considering leaving education but feel like they have no options. I'm your host, Elizabeth Diakos. I'm a career transition coach who guides overwhelmed teachers out of education and into a life they love. In this season, we'll be speaking with wellbeing experts who can help you to stay well as you plan your exit. But I also want to share something with you. Many teachers want to escape the classroom, but still have a passion to teach. If that sounds like you, then consider becoming a learning success coach. Founder Kahila Sivas has created a business in a box. It's a 12-week guided process to build and launch your independent coaching practice with no profit share or franchise fees. Be inspired by the latest stories of teachers who are leaving the classroom at www.learningsuccesscoaches.com and get out of teaching with confidence. Episode 18. Hi everyone and welcome to the show. On today's show, I'm really delighted to be speaking with Lucinda Curran, who's a former teacher who now supports overthinkers to navigate change with ease through sound healing. Lucinda Curran, welcome to the Get Out of Teaching podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Lucinda, you were a teacher. Can you tell us what got you into teaching in the first place?
There was a few things. One of the things that really excited me about teaching was I always wanted to change the world. From a little tiny kid, I wanted to change the world and make the world a better place. And so I really felt that through working with little people and opening their sort of perspective to different ways and ideas and to get them to really think and be creative for themselves, it was a great way to do it. So just sort of spreading, the ripple effect out there with that idea. The other thing that I loved about teaching was that it was one of those jobs, I'm going to put in inverted commas, where no day is predictable and no day is exactly the same. And I really loved, just being able to be involved with the lives of my students and just, go with the flow on the day. It was a really beautiful time. And I was working with little ones, so 0 to 8 was my age group.
Oh, okay. And whereabouts were you working?
So initially I was working in preschools, and then I grew up and went to big school. So when I finished, I was teaching grade 1.
Okay. And so you were a classroom teacher or a music teacher?
Classroom teacher.
Classroom, yeah. As you were talking about days being unpredictable, for some reason, I just had this flash in my head of a morning where I was going off campus for some excursion or something. And I had a relief teacher come in to take my class, and I was teaching performing and visual arts. And it was my first year of teaching, and I had 8 grades of prep. So they're like 5 years old, first year of school. And it was, madness and mayhem at the best of times. And on this particular morning, I had all of the marimbas out on the carpet ready to go. And they're like a wooden xylophone for the uninitiated. And someone had kicked a soccer ball through the window, and there was glass all over the floor, all over the marimbas, all in the little cracks in between each key. And I had to go, I had to leave because there was a bus waiting. I can't remember where we were going now. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to set this up for the poor teacher? Anyway, we got it all sorted in the end, but it was a bit mad. And for some reason, that just popped back into my head. That was in 2006 that happened. And I just thought of it again then. So thank you for jogging that memory and reminding me about the unpredictability of teaching.
Yeah, I think it's one of those great joys with it. Like there's nothing that you can predict. I mean, you can have a basic plan, but it just happens as it does.
Yeah, that's it. Another time a kid kicked a soccer ball and the whole window just fell in one piece. It didn't actually break. It just kind of landed against the art racks and just stayed there. So that was fun. Anyway, all right, enough of windows and disasters. So, okay, so you were teaching, how long were you teaching for?
I was teaching basically full time for 12 years.
Okay.
But I decided that it was time to make a change.
Yeah. So what was the catalyst for making that change?
So I was living in the Blue Mountains at the time, and then I moved down to Melbourne because I knew teaching down here was much, much better. And it really, really was. It was incredible. And when I got here, I landed myself a job in the most amazing school, with no politics, with really cool parents, and the children were amazing. And I started to realize I wasn't enjoying it. So it wasn't the politics that I thought was going on in the last school, and it wasn't all the other different things that were going on. I'd started to realize that it was time for change. And I know when I started teaching, I'd seen a lot of older teachers that were really jaded,
Mm.
and always watched the impact that had on the students, and promised myself or whoever that one day, if I ever got up in the morning and went, I don't want to do this anymore, I was going to stop, because it would hurt the students, and that wasn't fair. So
Mm.
yeah, I actually gave 6 months notice. I knew, and I just gave notice. I didn't know what I was going to do next, but I gave my notice because I knew it was time.
Wow, that's brave, and to not know what you're going to do next, but to have that integrity as well. And thank you for sharing that story, that vulnerability with us as well. I really appreciate you doing that. So, okay, you decided to leave. It sounds like you had really good reasons for leaving. I certainly encountered many teachers like that who were jaded and should have left probably a decade earlier than they did. What was the process you went through then to navigate through that transition from being a classroom teacher into what you're doing now?
Well, what I'm doing now is actually quite a few steps on from what I did straight away. So I spent, once I gave notice, which was mid-year, so I was going to finish at the end of the year, I used the next few months to make the decision about what I wanted to do. And I had this amazing sense that I could do anything, like everything and anything. What would I like to do? And then overwhelm kicked in, because it's like, that's like too huge to deal with. Like absolutely everything is too much to choose from. So then I did some soul searching and went back to stuff I'd said very early on, that if I ever stopped teaching, I'd love to blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that I wanted to do was acupuncture, because I'd had some problems with my wrists when I lived in the Blue Mountains. I got ganglions, and the only thing that helped with the pain was acupuncture.
Okay.
So I went, that's it. I'll just do acupuncture. I mean, I was tossing up between psychology and acupuncture, and I realized that psychology was part of Chinese medicine. So therefore, if I did Chinese med, I would get both covered and I would be happy. And I was. So I went back to training. It was 5 years to do a double major for my degree. Got out, started practicing, ended up getting health problems because I moved to the inner city to practice, and I got affected by lots of things in my environment. So that meant another pivot. So I moved into the area of looking at the way our built environment impacts our health. And I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And going right back to that very first year of doing my Chinese medicine training, one of the teachers said, oh, you can use tuning forks with the meridians. So that's the energy pathways to sort of join up the acupuncture points. And I was like, cool, how? Being the big sponge super learner that I am. So tell me. And the teacher was like, you'll find out later. It was never mentioned again. And so when I saw a tuning forks workshop pop up randomly, I was like, I'm in, I'll do it. And literally I turned up, the teacher started the class. I went, this is it, this is me, this is what I need to be doing. So I then continued and completed the diploma of sound healing, not quite knowing how that was going to fit in with what I was doing. But again, trusting that urge, that I always call it my inner knowing, that this was the right thing and I would work it out eventually. And yeah, so I'm out the other end, and this is what I'm doing now.
Wow. So, I can imagine. So I've got so many questions. How did you survive financially while you were doing all that study?
I struggled because I'd already done postgrad. So I did my master's in children's literature. So that meant I couldn't get off study. So it was relying on savings and trying to, I did some casual teaching for the first few years. I also did massage first as the very first thing that I completed with my studies, so that I could then do that as work to help supplement
Right.
and feed my puppy and me.
So yeah, just for the international audience, AusStudy is like a government-funded education. They basically pay for your degree and then you pay it back later. So it's not quite like a student loan. It's a little bit different because the debt it dies with you. You don't have to pay it back if you die. So it means you can let it burble along at a low interest rate. If you never want to pay it back and you never earn too much money, you don't have to pay it back. That's basically the bottom line. Anyway, sorry, we digress, but I just thought I should explain that because
Sure.
It's probably quite foreign to a lot of other countries to have a system like that. Okay, so you did your extra training, and what was the actual title of that, the sound healing course?
So that's a diploma of sound healing. So basically, between teaching and now, I did a Bachelor of Health Science. I did several massage Cert 4s, so certificate 4s. I then did an advanced diploma in building biology and then the diploma in sound healing. I like studying.
Yeah, wow, that's a lot of study. So tell us what a day looks like then, the life of Lucinda Curran.
Oh, it does vary day to day depending on what's on. So basically, I've got a beautiful program that I run with clients where it's actually quite immersive and intense. So one week everybody's getting an individual sound healing session. The next week they're getting a coaching session and then a group sound healing. The week after is another individual sound healing, and then the week after that we do a campfire where we all get together and it's a group support session kind of thing. So a sound healing session starts with like a brief consultation, where are you at, what's going on, what would you like to focus on, and what's your intention. So we set an intention for the session, and that's a very, very powerful place to start and carry through the session. I then get my client to get in a nice comfortable position, headphones on, eye shade, and then just what I call surrender to the sound. So being aware of the sounds and your experience of them, but not overanalyzing, not thinking, not trying to be too conscious, but just letting go and experiencing whatever happens. At the end of that, we then have a bit of a recap as to what they experienced, and then I give them some activity that's sound related to do in between sessions. So yeah, that can be a full day of that, which is awesome.
And so from the client's perspective, how does that experience impact on them?
It does very much vary. One of the key things is that sound healing really does trigger a deep relaxation. And relaxation obviously is the counter of stress. And when we're in stress, we can't do proper healing. Like our bodies can't heal as they normally would. So I always see that as a seesaw. So when we drop our stress levels, healing can improve and increase. So we're basically supporting our body to do what it does naturally. So that's first and foremost, that's across the board for everybody. Some people get lots of visions, so it's almost like dreaming. Other people experience just a whole lot of physical sensations. Some people have had smells that come through to them, like, it's like, oh, I could smell a rose and I could smell this and that. So it could be a whole lot of varied experiences that happen for people. But ultimately, what I found it does with the clients that I've been working with is that it really brings them back to getting to know themselves, trusting who they are, and there's a lot of release that happens as well. So release is getting rid of energy. So we're not naming it. And I think too often in our lives, we get trained to either stuff it down and not talk about it. So we could shove it down with food or whatever we do just to keep it quiet and to ourselves. We can go to therapy for years and talk it out, or we can use sound healing, which just literally releases energy. So it's not about creating a story around it. You often don't necessarily even know what that energy was related to, but you can feel it leave. So it might be like a little twitch, like in your fingers or something. I've had a sensation where somebody was playing a singing bowl, so a beautiful big bowl like this. They had it on my chest and they were playing it on my chest, and I was like, gosh, what is that weird feeling inside? Am I having a heart attack? And it sort of kept going and building. I was like, right, I've got to say something. And I took a breath in to say something, and it moved up to my throat, like completely left my chest and went to my throat. And then I let out my breath and it just went. So I have no idea what that was. And I know it sounds really strange, but that's the sort of stuff, like energy will shift, things will be released, and we don't have to get caught up in the story. We don't have to be re-traumatized with, going over and over the details and examining what that could have been and who, what, and how, and it's just gone. And that's nice. Yeah.
So it sounds like there's perhaps a heightened sensory awareness as part of the process. Is that?
Yes, I suppose so. I think we're shutting down our external senses, I think, and bringing our awareness back inside. So you become aware of, and I've even found online, you can feel the instruments, the vibration of the instruments through your body, even though it is online like you would in person, you can still feel it. So I think your awareness comes within
Mm.
rather than being distracted, which I think teachers, you have to be. You have to be aware of everything that's going on around you. Think of playground duty and all of that. You have to have eyes everywhere. So this is just sort of shutting that all down and bringing it back in.
Mm. Oh, it sounds beautiful. So can you give us a little demo of your bowl each? Just Lucinda's got a beautiful bowl. It looks like it's brass. Is it brass?
It's a combination of metals. So there's about seven to 11 different metals they use in Tibetan bowls, depending on which bowl and who's made it and what their family history is. I've also got some tuning forks handy. So do you want me to do a mini session?
Yeah, let's go. I'd love that.
So if I would encourage everybody, if you are driving, don't sort of immerse in this while you're driving. Just listen back later and do it when you're not doing anything that's
Thank
important.
you for saying that.
Yeah, I would also encourage you to lie down if you can, or sit somewhere comfortable, certainly closing your eyes. I find that putting an eye pillow or a towel over my eyes just to stop the light coming in so that I get really, really internal is valuable. So I'll just hop up and switch my microphone settings over and we can start. Alrighty. So just taking a moment now to settle into your space, to become aware of your body, aware of your breath. Drawing a big deep breath in, down into your belly, and letting it out with a sigh. We'll do that again. A big deep breath in, and out with a sigh. very gently start to bring your awareness back to the room, back to your body. Bring some movement to your wrists and your ankles, stretching out whatever needs to move. And when you're ready, come back up to a seated position. And if you want to have a drink of something, now's a great time.
Oh wow, that was amazing. My lips were tingling. I don't know what that was about when you were doing that right near the beginning, like before you got the other bell, when you were doing the tuning forks. That was it was weird. I'd still got that tingly feeling.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Wonderful. Often that kind of sensation can just be like sort of little releases. So, I talked about my big one from the chest. It's almost like the finger twitch, kind of just stuff moving, things being released. I sort of think, given where it is, maybe it's things that needed to be said that hadn't been said that are just gone, which is great. So obviously in a session it's sort of longer, there's the silence as well as the sound, which is a really big part of it, but that was a very condensed
Doesn't
mini.
work for a podcast, does it, to have too much silence?
No, not without warning. So
Yeah. Oh, thank you. That was very generous of you to share that with us. And I hope people listening were able to actually like take the time to relax and kind of get into it. So, okay, Lucinda, before we sort of wind this up, if there was someone wanting to leave, planning to leave education, and they're feeling pretty stressed and overwhelmed, what advice would you give to them?
I think there'd be three main tips that I'd offer. One is to make sure that every single day you have some me time. So where you just cut off from the world, it's just about you. Now that might be as simple as having a cup of tea, the favorite cup of tea, gazing at the sky, enjoying the sunset, sunrise, whatever it is that you need. Perhaps you're someone who likes to go for a run, whatever it is, have some me time every single day.
Mm.
I think the other thing is that when we are teaching, you sort of think about all the different lives you're in contact with in the day. And that's a lot of people with their own stuff that you're exposed to. And if you tend to be a bit sensitive to that kind of thing, I think getting rid of all of that, apart from the stress of the day, etc. So I think doing a brain dump, as I like to call it, when you get home, or even before you leave school for the day. So if you finished work, just sit there, pull out a journal and just get everything out of your brain. Maybe it ends up being a list where you can highlight some to-dos from it, or it's just getting everything out so that when you start your time, your family or home time, it's just for that.
Mm.
And I think the other thing that is really important is to do something like sound healing. And I've actually got a free track if people are interested in downloading it. So
Oh, fantastic. So we will share that if we're able to share that link
of
in
course,
the show notes for this episode, then people can access that. That's very generous. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, so as we wind this up, is there any questions I should have asked you that I haven't asked you?
I guess no, but I guess one other comment that I would make is just to always trust yourself. So whatever it is that comes up for you, whatever you're feeling, be guided by that. I think listening to your voice as the loudest voice that compared to what's around you is always going to be the best guidance you'll get.
Thank you. Okay, so finally, what's your favorite song?
Um, there are so many, but I am going to choose A Forest by The Cure. So English band. The thing I love with that song is no matter what I'm doing when I hear it, I have to stop everything and just listen. I think it's one of those songs that I get lost in.
Mhm.
You get carried away by the sounds and the music into this other world with the song. So yeah, that would be my favorite.
Beautiful. Well, maybe we need to share that link as well in the show notes so people can have a listen to that as well. Thank you. Lucinda Curran, I'm very glad that you came and joined us today on the podcast. Thank you so much for playing the sound bowl as well. That was really not something I've done a lot of. I've seen them and I have friends who are into it, but I haven't really had much experience with it. So I really appreciate you broadening my horizons today.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for having me and letting me to talk to people who were doing what I was or are doing what I was doing. And I think we've all been in that place where it's time to change. So yeah, really, really honored. So thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Get Out of Teaching podcast, presented by Lark Song Enterprises, with your host Elizabeth Diakos. Thanks for listening. If you need more support in your journey out of education, take a look around my website larksong.com.au, where you'll find free resources, my resume revamp product, and a link to book a strategy call with me to get you moving forward. I've been where you are now, and you don't need to do this alone.